That us, Mark.
That should buzz, Paul.
Hello and welcome to episode 90 of Celtic Rumours TV, the Bawz and Bovril podcast with your host Mark and myself, Paul. You can check out the form to the podcast at www.celticrumours.com.
Your sound's a wee bit jumpy, Paul.
My sound. Seconds there now. You just...
Just getting the StreamYards a bash tonight. Let's see how that goes, or just see if it makes things any better.
My sound now, Mark.
That's a lot better, Paul.
Alright, we'll start again, so apologies for that, lads. Hello and welcome to episode 90 of Celtic Rumours TV, the Bawz and Bovril podcast with your host Mark and myself, Paul. The form to the podcast page is www.celticrumours.uk. You can also check out all our links to the podcast in the description below. On the show tonight, we'll talk about the latest transfer news around Celtic, pre-season matches and preparations so far, youngsters impressing during pre-season, more departures expected, are we expecting more arrivals, and of course we'll be going through the live chat throughout the show, and if there's anything you guys wish to say, please let us know. As Mark said there, we're using StreamYard just to hopefully bring the podcast to the next level. So basically is that Mark is going to put a link up in the live chat, and if any of you guys want to come on, you can click that link and you'll come directly onto the podcast. You don't have to be downloading Skype, you don't have to be going through the internet, Mark, trying to set up an account, or look, it'll just be straight on. It'd be something like BBC 5 Live, Clyde TV, but we won't be pro the Huns if it's like Clyde TV, you know. But Mark will just do a quick shout out and talk you through it properly.
No bother, thanks very much, Paul. A few shout outs to the usual guys: Tim Alloy, a Glasgow Green, Rich and his family, and Steph Boy for the forum. He's doing a sponsored walk for, is it St Andrew's Hospice? I think it's St Andrew's Hospice. I'm not 100% off the top of my head. But he's doing a sponsored walk for one of the cancer hospices it is. So I've put the link for that in the description box below. If you can afford to get a couple of pound in, please get it, and it's going to a good cause. Thanks very much. Well, Paul was saying this is a new, well, it's not a new thing, it's new for us. We've been talking about trying to use it for a while, this StreamYards, and it just really is. It's going to make it's so much easier to get people that just want to come on for maybe 5-10 minutes at a time. Just a wee shout outs for who's in the chat now. It's Stubbsy's here. Hi Brian. OG, I see him. I see OG jumped the wall. He was away up in the jet skis with his wee Ranger supporting pal the other day. I seen the video. So he'll be going to Ibrox next season, I think. OG, what's happening there, son? Campsy, Welshie, enjoying the life of luxury. The new the lad said, I seen that picture of you the day with the can in your hand. Jabber, Campsy, Stubbsy. Oh, there, Mikey. Nice to see you, Mikey, bud. Nice to see you in, Mikey, mate.
Mikey or Welchie there if you want to ring in the show. Mark will get you sorted. Will I motor on?
Aye, batter in.
Celtic midfielder Ismael Zoro has joined Portuguese side FC Arosa on a season-long loan with an option to buy. Once the prospect or youngster was hopefully going to take over the reins from former Celtic captain and legend Scott Brown. Rumoured to be a Celtic target, Malik Tayu is on a list of players that German side Schalke have considered as top priority to sell. The Germans, previously linked with Celtic's defender Crystal Julian after talks broke down over wages, have now signed Japan international Moya Yoshida and told Mike that they now have too many centre backs in the club and need to finance money for other areas. We talked about this fella the other day and we said that we don't think we're in for him because his price tag is really between 8 and 10 million, around that mark, and
Aye, we're getting
if
linked with a lot of players, Paul.
and I
It's just
yeah,
fairy
but
tale
the
stuff. I
interesting
think
thing, Mark, that I said about
they're good players,
yeah,
Paul, but they're not going to. It's
but
not going to happen.
this is what I'm saying, Mark. Like these are when I was reading up about this fella, he's a he's a prospect. Like he's not going to come in straight into the Celtic side. Do you get me? No. And then it got after I seen that today, and I saw it like if he's such a high prospect, now they've changed managers, Schalke, and the new manager's not impressed with him. He's been out all season. Last season, Macron only played 5 games, 3 at the start, 2 at the end. I get wary about a player like that, Mark. Do you know what I mean? If a new manager comes in and buys a new defender straight away and wants to put out one of their hot prospects,
Aye, it's a bit, well, it depends. I mean, they were fighting for promotion, weren't they, Paul Schalke?
Yeah.
So you can maybe look at it that way. He's maybe went for a kind of the old head, the old experienced head kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But Mark, do Celtic have the finance, right? We say we got him for half that. We say 5-6 million. Like we hit for me, and it was clear yesterday as well, Mark. Our two best defenders in centre back are Starfelt and Vickers. Are we going to spend that much on a defender?
It's going to be
and have him
back,
sit in the bench?
main backup.
Yeah.
See, I don't think that will happen, Paul. I just, I mean, we know Ange wants to build a strong squad, but as you say, it's a lot of money. When Celtic are spending that kind of money, Paul, I know that Edward was maybe a wee bit different, but when Celtic are spending that kind of money, you're looking at a first team starter, really, aren't you?
Moving on, Celtic have a bid accepted for St Mirren's 17-year-old defensive midfielder Dylan Wright. A bid of 112k was accepted, and said yesterday that this signing is a Celtic B team signing, and he's letting all the talks and negotiations be handled by Steve McManus and Darren O'Dea. But that's interesting, Mark, because remember we talked about McManus stepping into this role, that he's going to be the link for
between the
team, and it's interesting that we see McManus, Mark, bringing players into that fold. You get me? Going out buying players specifically for the B team, and having a plan, Mark, a proper plan.
That's what big clubs do, Paul, isn't it? I mean, that's what.
Do you know what this is, Mark? And I was reading about this. This is without doubt having Ange and Mark Lawren in the side, because this is what Manchester City do. They buy players, Mark, youngsters, and they loan them out straight away.
But they're changing. They're changing their rules, but Paul, I'm sure they're changing that. And I've read a couple of articles that it could affect, see, like clubs like Man City and Chelsea. I mean, the other year Chelsea had some like 26 players out on loan or something, was it, Paul?
32 players out loan.
I mean, that's craziness. And I'm a great believer, Paul. I think if you get to a certain age, you should be playing football every week. Whether you're at Celtic and playing for Celtic, or whether you're saying where you go and loan to play every week, players need to be playing games. So you can see why these clubs they stockpile these young players on the off chance that they find a gem, because that's really, they're just.
Oh yeah, that's what
that's it. They're basically gambling. They're basically having
a.
They're basically just.
The best players they bought the best players in Germany, Mark, and.
Just gambling. You're just gambling. If you sign 20 young boys for the area, the chances are you're going to find like the latest hot young player for that area. Do you know what I mean? That seems to be just what they're doing. But if the real change, that could open up a lot of players that maybe were out of clubs like Celtic's reached before, that would have looked at Celtic, but the money of Man City and clubs like that has turned their head. Whereas now the chance to come to Celtic maybe be more appealing to them if there's a clearer path to the first team.
Some good news for Brian there, Mark, who's on the live chat, because I know he'd be very excited about this fan. Celtic fans preferred transfer target to fill the boots left by Leon Bisson. Defensive midfielder Lewis Fogson looks to be joining Italian side Bologna for 3 million. He's already agreed terms, Mark. Bids have been accepted. He's having his medical tomorrow, I'm a big believer, Mark, and I'm going to throw back to the example what you said about a transfer target. Uh, there was reports that, and I don't want to go too much into this, Mark, because we're going to talk about it in a minute, right? There was reports that Jordan's Larson's representatives contacted Celtic, and you said if Ange wanted Jordan Larson, he'd be contacting their representatives, not the other way around. So, do you actually think Ange actually saw nothing in those folks, that there was never a concrete interest in Celtic since Ange came in?
I think if Peter Lowell had still been involved at the club, I think Ferguson would have been more on our radar, Paul. I really do. I think we know Peter Lowell liked to kind of keep like a kind of a lot of the Scottish-based players in Scotland, that kind of way. But Paul, I've said it before. If I agree with what you're saying. Ange must know have wanted him.
Exactly. That's what
He
I'm
must
thinking,
know
Mark,
because
yeah.
if they did want to, he'd have probably made a move for him before now, kind of thing.
And interesting too, Mark. Like, I think the first bid is going to be, I think, 2 million, and there's 1 million. Then I think in add-ons, throughout that, so the total team will come to 3 million, right? But for me, with this, right, Aberdeen aren't going to be selling to a rival, so they accepted that. But I think, Mark, if Celtic went in, we could have the same scenarios with McGinn. They're quoting us
But
6-7 million for McGinn.
But you always get that, Paul. That's how
Yeah.
people work out transfer fees. It's like see if Celtic were selling a player. If Southampton come in for him, Southampton aren't going to give Celtic £25 million for a player like Arsenal did. So you've got to have these kind of. Do you get what I mean? There's got to be some kind of parameters of who you're dealing with. It's like, see when Chris Sutton was leaving Chelsea, there's no way Chelsea would have sold him to another English team that was chasing European places for £6 million. They'd have been at least looking for their money back. So that comes into it. So you're strengthening one of your rivals. So there's going to be a kind of taxes now, but there's just the normal thing that clubs will make it a bit. They want more money because they're going to be playing against the guy, basically. So I still
I'm
think
quite
Celtic
happy,
should.
Mark, we haven't. For me, I'm quite happy, Mark. We didn't. I've said it to you, Mark, a long time ago, and I've said this podcast a long time ago, Mark. We are not going to bid for Ferguson. I don't see him as the player. Like, why do you think like Ange didn't want him, Mark? Do you think maybe? For me? Do you think? Would Ferguson struggle with the fast pace that Ange plays, is what I'm trying to say, and that's maybe what Ange didn't see.
But but even when you look at who we've got in there already, Paul, Gucci, we've not seen anything of Gucci. McCarthy, we've not seen any McCarthy. And I mean, Ferguson, I mean, he can play the defensive midfield role, or he can do like the box to box job. But it's just one of the things.
Do you think maybe Ange doesn't want that kind of player, though, Mark, a box to box? Because when you look at the inverted full-backs, Mark, they tuck in, like, so they're kind of playing that barrier between the centre-backs, do you get me? So then they don't need a kind of box-to-box midfielder to go up and down the pitch like that all the time, because you say you have McCarthy or Gucci, then that will sit there again, and he's going to create another barrier. So maybe he doesn't want that player, Mark, to be moving up and down the pitch, maybe wasting their energy, that he'll have a player who can conserve the energy, Mark, and do the job he wants. Do you get me?
Well, you can't just. I mean, it's kind of static, Paul. If you're playing with a three-man midfield and one of them's not playing like a box-to-box role, one of them's got to get up and down that park to help to aid the kind of defensive midfielder and to aid the attacking midfield. But it's like the wee boy Hickey for Hearts. I mean, I don't think he'd have got into the Celtic team at that time, but he's been out of Italy, he's improved himself, and he's got a big money move to one of the kind of, not a big team in England, but Brentford are a kind of forward-thinking, progressive kind of team.
It's a stepping stone.
Definitely, just the same as like Ayer or that. You're expecting Hickey to go down there, play for 2 or 3 years at Brentford, and then get a move, take the next step onwards. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe Ferguson too, Mark, himself was thinking the same. Like, I go off to Italy, he saw what Hickey did there, Mark. He go off to Italy for a year or two, like, but Ferguson isn't that much of a young lad either, Mark. So
22, 23, isn't
yeah, you know what I mean. So like, I don't know what, Mark, it's a good move for him. You know what I mean?
Aye, I hope it works out for him. I really do.
For Scottish football as well, like,
As I
I'm
said,
just happy that it hasn't
He's a nice
come here.
enough. He's a nice enough lad in that. No, so hopefully it works out for him.
As reported by my dear self in the podcast a few weeks ago, Celtic were interested in Israeli international midfielder Mohamed Abdul Fani from Maccabi. Well, after missing out on supposedly our top target Vincent Souza, could Celtic actually turn their attentions back to Fanny? And Mark, the interesting thing is, Mark, I read that Celtic have talked to do that again about this lad coming as recently as last week. So we've saw the nice players, Mark, that he brought us. Do you know what I mean? So could this be a deal, Mark, coming on the radar? Because very little podcasters and very little people have been reporting this. Do you know what I mean?
Who are you talking about?
Mohamed Abdul Fani.
Right. I just wanted you to say that again.
Do you remember I said this in the podcast weeks ago, Mark?
No, I know who you're talking about. I just wanted you to say it again. No, it doesn't seem to be getting away, doesn't it? No, it seems to be.
Especially, Mark, do you know what I said to what Ange said, Mark, that he has about 4 or 5 targets. If one target's not there, then again, we're grand, we move on to the next one. I think Fanny is actually one of these targets, Mark, and that this deal actually could happen, I said, you know.
I think there must be something in it, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, as you said, it's been mentioned a few times and then it's popped back up again. But you don't, as we say, Paul, Celtic scout that many players. Just because we scout them doesn't mean that we're actually any closer to signing them or anything like that. Do you know what I mean?
I think, Mark, the reason that this one is so interesting is because of the relationship Celtic have with the lad Duda. You know?
That's his agent, isn't it? There,
yeah,
me and Mike, there's that one on the screen there. Me and Mikey were talking about him the other day. The Argentinian boy.
Fastu Vista, I have that here, Mark. Just on my next post. Celtic have been linked with Fastu Vieira of Argentinos Juniors. They recently signed Alexander Barnaby from their, Mark. 22, he's a defensive midfielder, and he represented things. So he could have actually come to Celtic's radar, Mark, when we were scouting Barnaby. Do you know what I mean?
He might have, Paul. He might have, and Mikey watches a lot more kind of foreign games and under 21s and stuff like that. And Mikey says that his boy's some player, Paul.
I've read about him.
I looked him up on YouTube and that, but again, it's all YouTube, innit?
22 and defensive midfielder, Mark. And if Ange is looking for this player that he wants, this fast player who keeps the ball moving, who can put in tackles and get forward with the ball, this lad is it, like, you know what I mean? You know?
Aye. That's the kind of, we used to go, it would be great if we could tap into the South American markets and that, but we've said these changes to the rules for Brexit and that makes it a lot easier to bring these players into the country.
Why is that, Mark?
And as me and Mikey were talking about as well, there's somebody connected to Celtic that's watching these players in South America. Is this coming in for maybe Mark Lowell came in? I mean, Mark Lowell will know about young Mark. Players, every player young over the world in that.
Because if you look at his CV, Mark, his speciality is the South American market and the Asian market. That's his speciality. So all of a sudden,
it must be Baby Lowell that's doing these kind of bringing these players to the table.
We signed Barnaby, Mark, who didn't actually come to Celtic's attention till Mark Lowell came in. Really did this.
No.
You know, so and if you look, Mark, over the years, the amount of South Americans that came to Manchester City, you'd Gabriel Jesus. They've recently signed another young fella, striker from South America, from Boca Juniors, Man City. This fella is supposed to be the next level Diego Maradona. They're saying that he's that good. So this is a market, Mark, that Celtic never looked at. And I don't think if Mark Law would have came in, Mark, would we have been looking at this market?
I don't think so, Paul. But again, maybe, as I said, with Brexit stuff, we maybe have started looking at it, but no, I think it's definitely something to do with Lowell that's coming in.
I don't think And you could ask me wrong here, Mark, but when you look at the Celtic scouts, and we did it before when we were going through the backroom stuff. I think it was last season, Mark. It was around this time we were looking at it because it was at the time when we were talking about Lefebvre and stuff like that, who's looking after the scouting department. And when we look at the scouts, Mark, there's actually not one of them is specialised in the South American area. They're all either European based, English based, do you know what I mean? Irish based scouts. Do you know what I mean? There was no one really with an expertise of South American, you know?
No, because it was a market you would struggle to bring players in for.
Definitely.
With work permits and stuff like that. So it has opened up, and but see all these places before that it was hard to bring players in for, Paul. Now for Brexit, it's just as hard to bring a player in for France as it is for South America or some wee back country or in Eastern Europe that you would have needed a work permit and that for. So all these barriers have been broke down now, so hopefully it's a good thing for like the smaller clubs like Celtic when they're competing against these kind of big boys. I mean, as a young guy for Argentina, Brazil or something going to come over to the UK, as you're talking about, just get lost in the Man City system, or does he want going to come to Celtic and be playing games and playing in the Champions League and stuff like that?
Especially, Mark, the pull as well that Celtic would bring you. Do you know what I mean? Like Celtic is a well-known football club.
Okay, definitely.
Down in League One or League Two, Mark. Do you get me? You know.
Definitely, Celtic's known all over the world, and see, even if these young players don't, their agent will know, Paul. Their agent will know all about Celtic.
Interesting here, boy. Well, you there mind the headline Celtic after Weah, backline to Weah was telling me Shadish, Mark, remember him, the Brazilian fella?
Aye, shite.
And
That was big Raphael.
yeah, wasn't he, Mark? There was all a bit of a, I don't know.
It was at Waverley, the
Yeah,
Brazilian manager, Waverley
John Park
Luxemburgo.
signed him, Mark, didn't he? He was under John Park's ownership, wasn't he?
I don't know, to be honest, Paul, without looking that up. But there was a thing that came out years after it, the Brazilian manager, Waverley Luxemburgo. He was taking backhanders to give players caps so that they could get big money moves to Europe, and he was getting a bung off them and stuff like that. So, he was awful. He was awful. I seen him live, Paul. He was awful. It didn't even look like a football player. He just looked so clumsy and unsteady in the ball and stuff like that. Really, really poor signing that.
That's all from the transfer market and a bit of gossip around. So Celtic have started their pre-season tour of Australia and have begun by playing 2 matches so far, winning 7-0 against Minos, Wiener Victoria, and yesterday's 3 all draw against Rapid Vienna. Firstly, Mark, the first game, Ange put out the youngsters, and rightly so, Mark, was against a small team, but there is a few nice little handy youngsters, Mark, coming through the Celtic youth system, isn't there?
Oh, it looks like it, really does. But let's cut to the chase, Paul, as I keep saying to you, it's still pre-season friendlies. But this is the manager looks at them for fitness and sharpness and stuff like that. But this is a chance for these young players to catch the manager's eye. And young Kenny, I know we're going to talk about him, young Kenny, Boss and Lyle, I mean, just what I've seen this season in the games, they've got to be championed at the bit, Paul, and at least being brought into the first team squad for me. They really have, at least they two. Or again, Paul, they've got to go out on loan. I mean, that young boy, Kenny, what is he, 19 now?
19, yeah. 19.
I mean, he's only the same age as Abada when he came in here, Paul, so I know you can't compare everybody to Abada, but maybe that's what we should be doing, comparing our youths at 19-year-old.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about them in more detail, Mark, there, though, when we have just after this, like we'll talk about. But going to yesterday's game, Mark, you know what I mean? Like, I know it was pre-season and stuff like that, but defence looked unsteady yesterday, Mark, and I've said it so many times in this podcast, Barry said it so many times in this podcast, Mark, our best 2 centre-backs, without doubt, is Starfelt and Vickers. I don't know, Mark, do they just give each other confidence and stuff like that? Because everyone's blaming Joe Hart for that goal yesterday. No, you have to question Vickers' back pass there as well, Mark, don't you?
100%. 100%. got to question Vickers or that.
It was gone past, Mark. It was gone past your heart.
I mean, I'd like somebody, Paul, see when Julian was back in the squad and all the guys that were on the forum and that saying Julian should be in the team before Starfield, I'd like them to come on and try and say that now.
Well, he was, Mark.
I mean, people going from Julian, is they going about him as if he's like a new version of Baresi or Maldini or something like that?
Do you remember I said to you when I watched the Celtic, the Glasgow Cup, and he came into the B teams because you're left bringing players like that, right? And I said that Julian was doing what he does best, getting too near the player, giving away silly free sticks, trying to do a 40-yard pass, Mark, when Ange doesn't want us to play that way. Yesterday, he started giving away needless free kicks again, Mark, outside the box. He tried to pass the ball, he gave the ball away, and lost his marker. Like the fellow who scored a goal, Mark, Julian was towering over him, and he lost his marker at the corner. You know, like how could people say that Julian needs to be playing, Mark? Like, I think that this fella, Mark, could, if he stays at Celtic next season, Mark, he could actually bring a bad atmosphere into that dressing room.
Oh, well, he could if he's took it off. I don't think he'll be here, Paul. I said that to you. I just don't. One, his agent's in talks with teams for France, the French teams that were in for him. His agent's been talking to them, so I don't expect him to be here, Paul. But I think Celtic made a major blunder triggering that year's extension on his contract.
Because Schalke would have taken him on loan. You know?
But it was a lot. It was like what Spurs done with Carter Vickers. They triggered that extension so they were guaranteed to get a fee for him, or Carter Vickers would have been in a free this summer. But Celtic triggered that option without waiting to see if the Schalke deal was finalised. So now basically Julian's got 2 years left in his deal. That's bad plans.
Do you know what worries me about that then as well, Mark, right? When we extended his deal, all right, by an extra year, and he failed to agree terms with Schalke.
A new name there, Paul. Stank Monster. Mm-hmm. Thanks for coming in, mate, and tuning in.
Is Julian, Mark, actually one of our highest honours, because he was signed, Mark, at the time for nearly 8-9 million, I think, wasn't he? So
it was 7 million, but it'll be a decent wage, Paul. That's what the problem was with Schalke. He didn't have a problem with the wages this season because Celtic would have been subsidising a percentage of them, but it was the wages that they were offering him after the year's loan in his full-time contract.
Yeah, that's the worrying thing, Mark, that he is if he stays, Mark, is it going to hamper Celtic buying another defender, do you think? I'd worry, Mark, if he had Julian coming into that back line next season.
But Paul, I keep saying it. For me, Julian's got to get Welsh out the picture first.
Mm-hmm.
I know Mikey doesn't really rate Welsh, I know that, but for me, he's good enough for a backup at SPL level. It would be a nightmare if it did.
Yesterday, Mark, again, he did struggle.
Okay.
You know?
But one bad game in pre-season doesn't make you a bad player, Paul. That's what I'm saying.
I've seen. I rate Reg, Mark. I think Reg will be a fine signing for player for us. But he seems to be making the same mistakes, Mark, that he did last season, getting too near the man. Do you get me? And he's the man then is so easy to turn him. Do you get me?
Aye. He's nowhere near the finished article. I'm not saying that, but in the pecking order, it stands for me. Welsh is in front of Julian. Another new name in the chat there, Paul. DJ Alba. Thanks for tuning in, mate.
But Mark, the goals yesterday. You know what I mean? Like we saw what Kyogo brings to the team, and 10 minutes on to the team, Mark, he sets up an assist and scores a goal. Like, there was some great play yesterday by Celtic, you know.
You can still see what Celtic's trying to do, Paul. I mean, Buzz and you both said, how many games is that? They're further on. They've got Champions League qualifiers coming up, haven't they? So they're further on in their pre-season as well.
In their pre-season since June, since the start of June, Mark. Yeah, they have qualifiers coming up. But Mark, I was looking then, though, right, yesterday, and I said it to you, and we were talking about, we thought James Forrest came off the other day because he was kind of holding his hamstring, and there was kind of reports going around Twitter then that James Forrest could be injured for this game, but he was on the bench and he came on. And I saw like James Forrestmark has lost a lot of weight and looks a lean player. That I haven't seen James Forrest like this in a long time. He really does look lean. Even his face, Mark, he lost weight in his face. And do you think maybe, Mark? No.
Was that in his goals you were watching? That?
No, but
it's probably just a dodgy picture.
No, is this down to our sports science department, Mark, getting these players to their fittest physique?
Well, maybe it's clicked with Forrest, Paul. Maybe it's clicked that he needs to work harder and he needs to be fitter and leaner and be able to cover X amount of kilometres a match and stuff like that.
Not only, Mark, does he have to shift Abada, he now has to shift Yata as well, because we know Yata can play that side of the pitch as well.
Maeda. Do you know what I mean? There's that many kind of... We have got a kind of an abundance of wide players now. You can even throw Mikey Johnson into it if the worst comes to the worst, you know what I mean? But I think he'll maybe be out on loan for the next season as well.
I saw an interesting thing, Mark, actually about him. I think it was on the forum page, that and said that Mickey Johnson now has to dislodge the players in front of him before he gets in the team. Is it time, Mark, for Mickey Johnson maybe himself to think he's not getting into this Celtic team, that he should move on?
Getting new punters tonight, Paul, son. There's another one. Positive vibes. Thanks very much for joining us. Hope you enjoy listening to us talking rubbish about Celtic. Sorry, Paul, what were you saying there?
I said the post on the forum page the other day, I forget one of the lads who put up, he said that Mickey Johnson firstly has to dislodge the players that are in front of him, the likes of Maeda, Yasa, Abada, you could show Forrest in there, Mark. Like, is it time for Mickey Forrest to look at himself?
Mickey Johnson.
Mickey Johnston, sorry, that he's not going to get into this Celtic team. Maybe he should move on himself for his own career.
I think the doubt will be in his head, Paul, whether he's actually going to make it at Celtic. I mean, we've spoken about it 100 times. Technically, he's a good player.
He's trying too hard, yeah.
There was the games, Paul. He seemed to be trying too hard in that. But it's his injury record, Paul. It's his physique. Do you know what I mean? We guys can still be solid.
That's why I think, Mark, that should a loan deal be better for him to get a full season playing football injury free. I mean, would be a good move for Mickey Johnson.
Maybe doing. I don't know. But some team like Kilmarnock's got that dodgy pitch into it, so you're no man to go there. But I definitely think he deserves a year out on loan to see what kind of player we maybe get back next summer, Paul. A day.
No, definitely. I'd be the same as you. Let's talk about this player, Mark. We've just spoke to him slightly there. Christopher Julian, Mark. We spoke to him briefly, but the reason I'm bringing Julian here, Mark, is because I want to talk about Bosman Law, right? And if Julian stays, in my opinion, I prefer to have Bosman Law in there within the first team squad, because I remember, Mark, when we signed him at the start of last season.
Well, you knew all about him, Paul, before we even signed him, didn't you?
Raving about this lad, Mark, that I said to you back that he'll be down to the B team, he'll be too good for the B team, and he'll be sniffing in around the Celtic first team come pre-season. He's played 2 games, I know, Mark, only pre-season, but you can see the lad has a head on his shoulders, that he knows how to read the game.
For what I've seen him, Paul, I've been looking forward to seeing him, Paul, for what you've said to him and the wee clips I've seen him, and he's like my type of player. I like that kind of player, do you know what I mean? So I'm really I definitely think he's got to be in the first team squad next season. I really do.
I mean, like, if I look at our backups, Mark, right, we're saying like Celtic was supposed to be linked with centre backs, but should we actually sign a centre back, Mark, when we have this young lad? Like, we're talking about Mickey Johnson being 22, we're talking about the young Kenny Abada's 19, Mark. Bosman Law's 19 as well, he'll be going on 20 soon.
He's a big laddie for that age, isn't he?
Yeah.
We need to get Campsey to tackle him, I think, Paul. I think he's about out of your league for this bare knuckle boxing fight.
But I think, Mark, he should be like our backup centre back with Welch, and have him there instead of spending silly money for centre back who's going to sit in the bench when we have this fella, Mark. We're always saying these lads need to be in and around the first team. They don't need to be playing week in and week out, but just to be in and around the first team, Mark, to get this experience going around to Europe, the Champions League games,
Getting
getting.
them used to how it feels to be a first team player preparing for games or the 2 or 3 days before them. And then, Paul, as I said, getting them on the park for 3 or 4 nothing up, put them on with 20 minutes to go and bleed them into the team, and before you know it, they're first team regulars. It's a natural. I mean, it's common sense when we sit and talk about it. I know it's a lot harder than that in reality, but that's got to be what happens. But what is the point of having all these young players in our B team in that when we're no any mention of bringing them into the squad? You seen their action on the forum, Paul. We spoke about just making weak young Kenny the third choice striker. Oh, you can't do this, we need to still buy another striker. And how much other times this new striker, whether it's Jordan Larson or whoever, how much game time's he going to get over Kyogo and Giacomakis? Unless we've spoken about, Paul, maybe Kyogo's going to be playing a wee bit further back. We don't know.
Oh, definitely, Mark. Like even to have like the likes of Joe Hart, Mark, and Vickers and Starfelt there, like Bosman Law could be lawing off them week in and week out at training. Like I definitely think, Mark, that he needs to be in the first team squad next season. Definitely, I actually would prefer him, Mark, than Julian, because it was Julian that was making the mistakes yesterday, not him. It was Julian that was making the mistakes in the Glasgow Derby last season, not him. Do you get me?
Aye, Paul, and see the thing about it, let's face it, we know that Julian doesn't want to be here. Or he wouldn't have went out and spoke to Schalke.
Exactly,
His agent
man.
wouldn't be out talking him about Europe. If he wanted to stay here and fight for his place, he'd have come out in the press and said that. I'm going to stay here and fight for my place and just try and get back into the manager's plans. But he didn't. He decided to have a wee mump and moan about things and that. And I don't think Ange's the type of guy that will take to that. Do you know what I mean? As you said earlier, Paul, it could be like having a detrimental influence in the dressing room and on other players. Because he'll still have a wee clique of pals. He's been there a good time. He'll still be friends with the likes of James Forrest, Callum McGregor, guys like that. Cause just because they're not in the team or that, they don't stop talking to each other. But Julian doesn't want to be here. We're sitting here, we've spent so long talking about him. As I've said, Paul, I just don't think he'll be here once the window's shut. I really don't.
Moving on, Mark, just something you touched on there. Like all this talk about Jordan Larson coming in, and like we spoke about today, like would he come to Celtic as at the moment, as we said, our two strikers at the moment, Mark, is going to be G Marks and Kyogo. Is Larson actually going to come in and sit in the bench and maybe upset the whole players up in that team, Mark? If he goes in straight into the first team, is G Marcus going to like that approach by Ange? Do you know, it could. I can't see Celtic signing him, Mark, to be honest. Do you know?
I don't think it'll happen. I really don't. I think the press have just kind of putting two and two together, and the fans are putting together this kind of fairy tale of seeing wee baby Larson playing at Celtic Park and that. But the actual logistics and reality is, Paul, we've not got a place in the squad for him. And what we're looking for, as I said, Paul, like your third choice striker.
Is Kenny that? Could Kenny, Mark, do that role like we're just saying about Bosman Law?
Well, Kenny could do the role, Paul, as long as we didn't get any injuries to either Kyogo or Giacomakis. Because then it's a case of, if say Kyogo gets injured again for a long-term injury, we're back to Giacomakis as our main striker, and then our backup's Kenny, which you're hoping by the time Kenny comes on, the game's won and dusted, but you can't guarantee that.
The reason last season, Mark, that with Joe and Kyogo and Giacomakis, the both were out injured, and we had the young lad Joey Dawson up there a few games with the Bada. Kenny was actually injured, and he had COVID last season, so he wasn't kind of up to speed himself. But no, like watch, and like watching him against Victoria, Mark. He knows where the goal is, and it doesn't matter if it's a smaller team or minus team. That doesn't matter. But the fact is that he knows where the goal is. You know.
I'd be happy enough to see Kenny as our kind of third choice striker, Paul. I would rather we went down the road of Kenny than going and signing
Exactly.
like your Defoe's or somebody like that, because for me that's the player that you're going to bring in as a third choice. Is either going to be a young lad or a veteran that's seen his time out. And if it's going to be a young lad, we know as well being at Warren, young lad, than bringing in even a loan or something like that.
Because Mark, I was looking between the two matches yesterday, like two matches, and especially yesterday's match, like the subs bench yesterday and the start 11, like it's a good squad now that Celtic had compared to this time last season.
Sorry, Paul, say that again.
I said, looking at the squad yesterday between the start 11 and the bench, it's a strong squad now that Ange has, packed with youngsters, Mark, who we said we want to be there, like Kenny, Bosman, Law. And if you go back to last season, at the start this time last season, we had no squad. So, like in a matter of a year, we've a nice squad with some youth players coming up.
I mean, in the space of a year, Paul, really, it's a brand new squad, isn't it? Really, even the players that we've had there that have stepped up. I mean, people when we're talking about Kenny, players like Kenny and Boss and Low and that, Paul, look at the difference in Tony Ralston. I mean, how do you know that Boss and Low or Kenny coming in and working with the first team day in and day out every day, working under Ange, the first team coaches couldn't just kick on the way Ralston has and become...
Because, Mark, that's why I think it's key now that these lads are kept in the first team because of the type of manager Ange is, that they'll actually learn from it. I think, Mark, these two players specifically, right? I don't want to go
Hold on now, Paul, that was Stubbsy, Kyogo and GG will have periods of time out. If they're injured, Stubbsy, I agree with you. But see this resting players, we've heard it out of Ange's own mouth. Ange doesn't rest players. If the data-driven stuff before that's working out and they're fit to play, they're playing. I mean, that seems to be the way he approaches the game. So unless one of them get injured, I don't see how it really cause any kind of problems.
Definitely. I actually lost what I was going to say there now.
Sorry, bud, sorry. We need to try and keep the
I was going to say something about the two lads, like having a manager like Ange, Mark, and I think with these two lads, right, I think it'd be more benefit for them not to go out on loan next season and stay with Ange at Celtic within the first team squad rather than go out on loan. I think it's key that they don't go out on loan just to stay in the first team, Mark, in and around that experience, and as you said, come into games now and then, and just I think that'd be more benefit to them.
I totally agree with you, Paul. We keep talking about like the pathways of teams, and that's part of this kind of pathway into the team. Unless you're absolutely sensational, Paul, pardon me, as a young player, you're not going to just walk into the first team. So they've got to kind of, I mean, even guys like David Beckham, Cal McGregor, they've all went out on loan for a year. There's somebody in the chat saying Christopher Ayer and that, and they come back better players. Ryan Christie.
Yeah, but
it makes you a better player if you're out there playing.
They did, Mark, but then, Mark, if you look back to the managers back then as well, we had Brendan Rodgers, we'd need Lennon. That when the players went out on loan, they could come back to set. But Ange has a certain type of play that I'd be afraid if the likes of Kenny and Bosman Law went out on loan and they came back to Celtic then next season and they won't be able to play the way Ange plays. Do you get me? You know, that's why I think it's key.
I know you're getting that now. I know you're getting that now. Aye. But I don't think another season in that B team, Paul's got to do them any good.
No.
Plus,
so that's why.
Plus as well, you puts that rule. You say you're only allowed 3 non-Scottish players in it.
Exactly. Yeah. 3 or 4 non-players.
Boss and Lowe and young Kenny, they're 2 of them right away. We Rocco Vata, they're your 3 players right away.
And you've young Toby,
your boy.
Yeah.
What position's that? Who's that again?
An interesting thing that I saw on the live chat there, Mark, by DJ Alba, right? He was on about Ozaza Yorhidi, and I felt sorry for the lad yesterday, Mark, when I saw it over Twitter after the game. I saw everywhere that the lad is useless. He's no space. He's no pace. It was an all live chat yesterday, and I was looking at the lads. He's he's 20. He's old enough now, Mark. I actually didn't realise he was 22. You know, he's 22. All right, but they need to get realistic, Mark. He's not a right back. He never was a right back. He's been put into position because of two injuries we have to Ivanovic and Radisson. And I was looking at the lads. I actually don't know what game they were watching, Mark.
You always get that, Paul.
You know, but
I even seen some folks slagging off the new Argentinian left back Bernabe. I've seen folks slagging him off in that. And
he's in the club, Mark. Not even a week. You know,
he's only in the country 10 days or something like that. Do you know?
And the lads have slagged him off.
Just Celtic fans, Paul. So I said to you, Paul, used to be players were. What was I said to you, Paul? Players used to be judged in their last game. Celtic players now are getting judged in their last touch of the ball. That's basically what it's like on social media and forums.
For all of last season, we're going on about the lack of a big player that we have. Like, you look at the size of Bosman Law and you look at the size of Ozaza Yorhidi.
That's a bit of physical presence, Paul, what we've said we've been missing.
When we signed Yorhidi from Sheffield Wednesday, he was playing week in and week out at centre back for Sheffield Wednesday. Do you get me?
Aye.
So there's a player there, Mark, but is he able to? The question is he able to play the way Ange wants? And at the moment, Mark, I don't know because I haven't seen him in his natural position. Last season, at the start of pre-season, Mark, he was thrown into right back as well because we only had Radisson there and Ange was looking at different options. It's clear, Mark, the lad doesn't have the pace that's needed, but what centre back, Mark, has pace? Do you get me?
Aye, I know what you're saying.
You know, like I can't make a judgment, Mark, on him till I actually see him in his rightful position. Do you get me? You know, and I felt losing him yesterday. Like, you know.
But again, Paul, there's that many players that were kind of still the jury's out on, isn't it?
That's it, Mark. Like, but this is a fella who played with the Dutch youth system up until he came to Celtic, and then it stalled. I know he was loaned out last season to Belgium.
We've seen that happening, Paul. Players' careers. Look at Connell and that. Do you know what I mean? Another young guy that I was looking forward to seeing playing for us, and it's just no worked out in it. His agent wasn't too chuffed either.
Mark, like, I know for the circumstances that it was that he had the player there yesterday, but like, it's pre-season. Like show him in a centre back. Let's actually see if the lad's decent. Like, you know, because Mark, we were saying we're constantly getting caught out of corners. We saw that yesterday with Julian losing his man. Show it to God, Mark, if we have a big centre back, Mark, coming through the ranks. He's 6'4" nearly, Mark, 6'5".
Or I should be putting people in the post as well, Paul.
Exactly. Oh, shocking, Mark. Shocking.
Do you know what I mean? That's. I think I said it on the forum, Paul. I think it was Brendan Rodgers I first noticed it wasn't doing it, and it was a pure pet hate of mine.
But Mark, did we, John last season though, we did have someone on the back post, didn't we? We did used to have someone on the back post.
Was it? I can't even. I thought it was Rodgers that done away with that.
No, I think some parts of the last season, Mark, we did have someone on the back post, but is this something now that they're trying in pre-season not to have no one on two posts because you're wide open?
No, that's just craziness for me. You're another new name in the chat, Paul. Daniel MC. Thanks for joining us, Daniel.
Really, Mark, like, when the caller comes in, Mark, realistically, the keeper's judging if he can go out for it or does he stay in the box. So he's always on a corner, Mark. The keeper's going to be caught in two minds. You know what I mean? That's why he needs support from the posts. Do you get me? Because if it comes in,
as well as we know, if I said as well, Paul, we know Hearts know the kind of big dominating goalkeeper that's going to just fly out and try and grab the ball, and if he's knocking attackers, defenders out the road, he doesn't care. That's no Hearts kind of style, sir. if he's coming for the ball, he needs to make sure he's going to get it. And if he's not coming for it, and if he's coming for it in 50-50, you need people on the post to,
Exactly.
do you know, even
And I
there's
saw
a chances
Joe Hart
of
coming from Connors yesterday, Mark, and he fisted out. So, like, Hart can do it. It's just why he's not doing it. You get me?
aye. That
you know.
fisting out, I don't know if I'd rather he fisted the ball or kicked it out the way he's been doing that there the last wee while as well.
But Mark, again, if you look at that save, Joe Hart had no right to save that header. I mean, that was goal bong. That header was goal bong. The fans and everything were celebrating, and he got down to his near post and
Some save.
not only save it, Mark, but hold it. Do you know what I mean? You know, I think the
I'm not slagging Joe Hart at all. You know that, but you know what I mean.
The keeper position.
He has got his weaknesses.
Is going to be interesting next season with Simon Seagrass. I mean, you look at that save yesterday from Scott Bain. That was going to the top corner. You know, I always said that Scott Bain was the best of three that we had between Hazard and Barkas.
He was a good. Scott Bain is a good shot stopper.
Yeah.
Apart from that, he's not really offering much. But really, you know, I'll be surprised if Scott Bain's still there as well, Paul, when the window shuts.
It's interesting, Mark, because like we didn't have a podcast since we signed Seagrass, and
because we were shocked with that, because we spoke about that for months. Me, you, Mikey, and Jonas. Do you know what I mean?
You know,
we just didn't think he would accept coming to Celtic to be the number 2.
You know, to me, Seagrass is a good keeper, Mark, and do you know what? I'm delighted he came to us rather than going the other side, because I think it would have been a better fit to the other side if they got him. You know.
Oh, but definitely. And if they hadn't, I don't know whether Seagrass turned them down or whether it was down to they were offering McGregor a new contract anyway. But it was the deal. It was meant to be that they wanted Seagrass if McGregor was turning down the new contract with him, and then it just comes down to money with everything else with him. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, because
there Mikey saying, I know Dundee United they're desperate for a goalkeeper, so maybe, but we spoke about that as well, because Mikey and Jonas have said that Bain's always batting Dundee, so I moved back to Dundee to City Dundee. That would be ideal for him,
because, or I hate going back to this young lad, Mark, you know I love him, Mark, and I've always rated him, but if Bain doesn't go,
Jonas told Mikey that they've made a bid for Bain, Paul.
What's that?
I've put up my screen there. Jonas told him the day that they've made a bid for Bain.
Hopefully we'll get Jonas on, Mark.
I said that. We'll get him on before the season kicks off.
If Bain didn't go, Mark, my biggest problem with these 3 keepers there is, what does this do for Toli Alawemi? You know what I mean? What does this do to his progress? Because for me, Mark, he should have been coming on that bench yesterday. Do you get me?
Well, I was surprised at that, Paul.
Yeah.
You'd have thought it would have been. You thought maybe it would have been Toby or
Seagrass.
Or Seagrass.
Is Ange actually putting him out in the shop window, Mark?
Well, maybe it is that. Maybe. I can't understand any other reason for it.
You know, because Mark, I'd hate to see having these 3 keepers there. And I know for a fact, Mark, that if the lad's not getting any pathway to this, like he has been getting the pathway, do you get me, Mark? You know, he's been in and around the first team, he's been getting it, he's actually training out with Stevie Woods and Joe Hart. But if that suddenly stopped, Mark, do you get me? Because they now have Bain, Seagrass and Hart, and his training with the first team, I can guarantee you, Mark, he'd be snapped up down South Street. As I told you, Spurs want him back.
Spurs were raging that they'd lost him, weren't they?
Yeah.
That's what weird, Jane, but for me, Paul, I'd say definitely Bain, Julian will not be here by the close of the window.
What about Yesi, Mark? What about Yesi?
No, he'll be away as well.
I mean, he's
I see Bal.
When I looked at his attitude.
Bal of Celtic, Mikey will probably know the name of the guys, but I see Bal had Celtic kind of main striker to some Turkish team. So that it's meant to be the story.
Yes,
Bal are looking at taking a Yeti back.
Well, didn't they? Sorry, just do my nose there. Didn't they try to come in for Mark in January because he took?
Can he be taking prop on the stream, Paul?
You know, didn't they come in for him in January? because they
Aye,
actually thought
aye,
that this lad was going to be moving to this Turkish crowd as well. I think there was the rumours back then as well, Mark, what there? You know,
aye. They were kind of. It always seems to be a kind of story that comes up any time
like Mark, I'm
a
surprised. Like,
Windies opener yet again back to Switzerland.
if you look at Bonagoli, right, even before we signed this new lad, Barnaby, like before we signed him, right, and we had Taylor, Montgomery, and Scales there, right, and at the time, Scales was still trying to get used to Ange's system. And the only realistic player that I could think of who was suited to Ange's system back then was Bonangoli. Do you actually think maybe, Mac, it's the club now as well that don't want him there?
Don't want who there.
Bonangoli.
Oh, it's another one, Paul. I mean, his Celtic careers, it's just.
But
It's
they all
really
hinder Mark on last season. Do you get me? Is it not just Ange now, Mark? Is it the club that don't want him there?
Aye, probably.
You know,
Aye, it probably did. Aye, I don't see.
because
I don't
he
think
got
Ange's.
suspended for 3 weeks, Mark, because of that, didn't he? Then
Because of the
all of a
COVID
sudden,
thing
all
and
these
that.
games then started crowding up on top of us then as well over that situation. Do you get me?
I think he's had a bit of a bad deal, Paul, with the COVID thing and that, to be honest. I thought the press, I know it was wrong and stuff like that, but I just think it was kind of blown out of proportion with the press.
Of a Mark, and that's what that's what it was. They really did.
Aye, they went done a job on him and that. I mean, he's a decent enough player. He'll find a team somewhere. Agents will always find you a team somewhere, Paul.
Mm.
And ball and goalie, he'll be
Do we
another
think
one.
so? Like that they'll be like. Will there any be surprise departures, Mark, or do you think it'll just be hopefully these four who we were saying that I don't know, Mark, we're saying it since the start of the season, really, with these lads like Bolingoli, Julian, Yesi.
I think if there's going to be a big surprise, Paul, to be honest, I do think it might be Juranovic, but I don't think it'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
I've said that there's going to be bids coming in for him at the kind of level that Celtic will
Especially,
accept.
Mark,
Celtic will
because he's a
accept
Croatian
that.
international as well, Mark.
Aye, I mean,
You know?
but that's what Celtic do. That's how they sell. Moving to Celtic, you come to us, play for us for a year, 2 years, whatever, build yourself up. If we get a big money offer for you, we'll leave it up to you whether you want to stay or want to move on. I mean, he doesn't. He's no intentions. For what I've heard, Paul, he's no intentions of leaving. But
Yeah, because,
it,
Mark, when you
but it
look at-
depends who these offers come in for, Paul.
Yeah,
Do you
but
get
that's
what I
the
mean?
problem, like, Mark, you know what I mean?
Aye.
If you look at him now season, Mark, at the cameras, telling Yash at the cameras he must sign a new, do you know what I mean? And then Jovanovic then is the one that's actually leaving. I'd be the same as you, Mark. I think he's going to give Celtic another season, simply for the fact we're in the Champions League as well. I think that could be one of the biggest holes in getting him, Mark.
And getting who?
And keeping him is Champions
keeping him.
League. Yeah.
Aye, well aye. I mean, unless it's going to be, Paul, like a life changing. I mean, do you honestly think Juranovic is going to leave Celtic for a Southampton
No.
or something? Do you get what I mean? That's what I'm saying. If they expect that bids for big teams come in, as I say, that's how we sell the club to these players to come in and do that. So Celtic will give him the option. Look, we've had an offer for X team. It meets our valuation. We're not forcing you at the door. We're more than happy for you to stay. We want you to stay, but it's up to you with that kind of life-changing move kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Here's an interesting thing for Mark, right? And I was looking at it, and I was looking at the two players.
Can you, Paul? Are you typing on that the chat and it's coming up as the Celtic Rumours TV one?
Yeah. That's
Oh, need to change
So-
that, man.
So right, we're linked with this. We're supposed to be linked with another defensive midfielder, right? So we currently have James McCarthy and Ideguchi there, right? So we need to see. I've said it to you, Mark, that Gucci is doing what I said Gucci would do. He break up the player, and that's what he's doing. But also James McCarthy's been doing that, Mark, in pre-season. We said it at the start of last season. Pre-season was going to be key to these two lads. Now, an interesting thing came up the other day on Twitter. Could Ange actually change his style in the Champions League, Mark, and play two defensive midfielders that he has been doing in pre-season with McCarthy and Gucci playing together.
Go like more a 4-2-3, 4-2-3-1 kind of
Mhm.
formation.
Because that's what he did when the two lads came on, Mark. Could he be trying out something new for the Champions League?
Well,
Because
maybe that's what he's going to do, Paul, to give him a bit more defensive cover in the
yeah,
Champions
because
League.
he's not changing the system, Mark. He's changing the personnel. Do you get me? You know, because if we go and play with the, if we get on, Mark, we say the Real Madrids or Juventus, and if we go all out the way we play in Scottish football, we could be in for long nights in Champions League. You know, we couldn't have Cal McGregor win the Champions League as a
No,
defensive
but
midfielder.
Cal
is what I'm
McGregor
trying to
gets
say.
destroyed in there, Paul. I said that in the
Yeah,
last podcast
yeah.
we done. That gives me the fear that I don't. Excuse me. I don't even like McGregor playing that role in Scotland, Paul. I don't. I prefer him further up the field, creating stuff in that.
He got called out, Mark, against Ukraine and Ireland in that position. Do you know what I mean? He got caught.
He's not a defender, Paul. He can't
No,
tackle,
he's not.
and that's
Can't tackle.
no. So that's the biggest problem right away. So maybe it's going to get back to the kind of old system you're saying, be like the two anchors sitting in there, and it's like the ball winner guy, and then it's just a
I thought it was
pass,
interesting,
a pass
Mark,
to McGregor.
because he's never did something like this since he's been in for the year, playing these two defensive midfielders in that role. Do you get me? He's never done it.
Maybe
And
just
then
didn't
during
think he needed
pre-season, he
to.
seems to be trying it. Do you get me? You know?
Aye, maybe just doesn't think he needed to.
Yeah.
I mean, as you said, he's not changing. It's no people put some like too much credence on things like formations and that.
No,
but
but
as you
he's not
said, Paul, he's
changing
not
that, no.
changing anything. He's just tweaking his system.
And
He'll
that will
still, they'll still play
enable
the same
Cal
way.
McGregor,
Aye,
Denmark to push up more. Do you get me?
aye.
You know, like I know, Mark, you're a great fan of James McCarthy, and listening to what he's been saying over pre-season, that he's fit, he's having a good pre-season. He was training at Lennoxtown during the summer. You know what I mean? I think like, do we actually need to go out, Mark, and buy another defensive midfielder when we have these two lads there?
Well, maybe that's why we weren't interested in Lewis Ferguson.
Could be.
Between Gucci, McCarthy, I can't even say that other name, Paul. You can say
Can
it.
he?
That you're a go-ahead guy.
Who?
See, doesn't
Is
matter.
it Gucci?
Aye.
Gucci, just call him
Gucci,
Gucci. That's what he called
right.
himself, Gucci.
Right, aye, maybe that's who we weren't, Boss and Lowell, maybe that's who we weren't in for Lewis Ferguson.
I think
Because
so, man.
Ange just thought,
Because if
listen, I mean, for me, outside Celtic, and nah, never mind even them, just outside Celtic, he was probably one of the best midfielders in Scotland. Lewis Ferguson, and maybe Ange, obviously, if Celtic aren't looking at the best young players in Scotland, they're not doing their job right, Paul. Do you know what I mean?
Because,
but maybe
man,
that's why Ange said, "Oh, well, I don't need him because I've got James McCarthy, I've got Gucci there sitting there, I've got Boss and Lowell sitting in the B team."
let's be honest, Mark, like Gucci was just unlucky last season getting that injury. Do you know what I mean? And to be fair, Beaton did well last season. Do you get me? You know? And you're not going to be changing the winning team. Do you get me? You know?
No.
You know, and
Bestie, an evening Bestie. Thanks for
think,
joining us,
Mark,
bud.
I think it could be a very interesting season between the two of them. You know, especially Gucci, Mark, because I've said it, Mark, all along here with you and Barry, and fucking people laugh at me in the live chat saying Paul's love child Gucci, but you could see, Mark, what I was trying to say about him is what he does. And
Ange's brought him in to do that job, Paul.
There's no scouts have scouted him, Mark. It was Ange.
No,
Get me?
for whatever reason he didn't get much of a chance last year. He get that injury and that stuff. So, as you say, maybe we don't need this kind of this new midfielder that
Because
everybody's
if you look
saying,
at the
because
fella,
basically Gucci's an unknown. I've seen Gucci coming in.
is it London, Mark, really? Isn't
It's like it's going to be like a new signing, really, isn't it?
it? Like, if you look at the fella from I hate pronouncing his name because it's just what it is, like Abdul Fani, do you know what I mean? and you look at the fella Vieira, I think they like to move forward. Do you get me? Gucci likes to move forward as well, man. But that's not That's not James McCarthy's game, Mark. Do you get me?
No,
You know,
no, he'll
James
just
McCarthy
he'll
likes
just
to
sit
sit
back
there
and protect the
and
defence.
and that's really like that's why I think Ange actually played them together because he'll have the stronghold in the middle of the park, but if one of them needs to go forward and break up the play, it's going to, like that's what I said about Gucci Mark. He'll be the
Hail,
first
hail, hail,
one to
hail,
move forward.
William. Thanks for
Do you get
tuning
me?
in, William.
You know, so
Aye,
I think McCarthy will sit
it's just
back
saying
and
is
go.
if he's going to go with the two, Paul, when we get back to like what we saw with like Scott Brown and McGregor playing in the two
Yes, yes,
positions, a
yeah.
wee ball winner which McCarthy could do, and then a wee touch to the side to let McGregor go and control the play.
You know, what I mean, like what Welch is saying here, like Gucci will be a player for us like this. He has an engine in Mark that we've seen from all our Japanese signings. Like Gucci's not a fella Mark who doesn't run. Do you know what I mean? 1 minute yesterday he was up the front tackling, and
Aye.
next 2 seconds he was down the back line breaking up the play as well. I think Mark, we could actually, I think we can actually, I think we see we see the best of him next season. You know, I really
As I
do.
says here, Paul, Angie's brought him in to do a specific job. For one reason or another, he's not the chance to show us what he can do, but I'll put my trust in Ange that he'll get into the team when Ange feels he's ready and he'll do a good job for us, I really
Because
do.
this is Mark. If you look at the signings, like this is an Angus signing. Do you get me? We wouldn't
Aye,
have signed him.
exactly, aye.
Yeah, you know, because like there's options there, Mark, and like I know Ange wants to sign up players, but then Mark, if you do that, Mark, is Ange giving himself too much of a headache? Then maybe having unsettled players. Do you get me?
Oh, just a squad game, Paul. We play enough. We play enough game. I mean, what did Dan say the other day? He's expecting to play at least 60 games this season.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nah, but there's plenty of games here for guys to get game time, Paul.
Yeah, but Mark, you know, modern football's now like, and I mean, they want to be playing. Do you get me? Do you know they don't want to be giving up their position. Like you know, I just think Mark that I I know he's still looking for a thing like, but I don't think it's an urgent area. Do you get me? When we have these two players already there, and do you know,
Thanks very much, Margaret. Thanks for joining as well. It's just
Mhm.
Quadrophenians in the heat of Lisbon. Just that's just what the music is. But thanks very much for coming in, Margaret.
Moving on. So Celtic will finish up their pre-season next Wednesday against Bannock at 5 p.m. Then they will turn to finish the rest of their training camp and return to Glasgow. They will then face Blackburn at Celtic Park, where Mark and a few lads from our phone page will be all meeting up in attendance. Mark, it's been a while since you've been back at Celtic Park. You must be really, really looking forward to this.
It's been too long, bud. Really has. And that's it. It's not. See, really, Paul. It's not even getting to the games because Celtic Park's only like what 20-25 minutes away from me. It's just the bother with the crutches and that, bud. You know what I mean? It's just. But I'm really looking forward to it. Just before I went on air, my wee nephew popped in, and he's all pure excited. He's away bragging to his pals that he's getting into Stone with the Green Brigade and stuff like that. So, I'm really looking forward to it and meeting Welsh as well after I let him down with that ticket for the Derby game and stuff like that. So, it'll be a good day out. Just wish you were coming in for it, bud.
Who? What one player, Mark, are you hoping to see? You know, like I'm counting of you know, like things that we don't see in cameras, players off the movement, you know, things you don't see in television, Mark. Like it's a great opportunity for you to actually see these players' movement off the ball as well, isn't it? You know?
I'll not see much, Paul, considering I'll be sitting down in the standing section. Do you know what I mean? No, just Paul, I'm just going to enjoy my day, bud. No, I mean, whatever it happens, it'll happen. I'm just delighted to be going to see Celtic again, mate. Really.
Aye, but without doubt, by pre-season or no pre-season, Mark, to get me, you know,
Just been that long. I mean,
yeah,
it broke my heart to get up my season ticket, but it wasn't worth the money. I couldn't pay it every year, Paul, no go to games, do you know what I mean?
you know, definitely, Barry. I'm delighted you're going. Unfortunately, it came a bit too soon for myself, but October, hopefully, Mark,
We'll
planning,
get your, no bother.
you know, hopefully October, you know, but you know, over the pre-season, Mark, like no pre-season last season. they're finishing up. They still have to play Norwich, I think, as well. They still have but the start of the week, the start of the league, Mark, is
No,
coming thick and fast.
just before Paul, we talk about that. Just a big shout out to Welshie as well for sorting out the tickets and that, mate. That's just appreciate that as well, Welshie man.
You know, just Mark, with the pre-season, looking at the players, and you always said, when you said to start the show, pre-season is about fitness, getting the players back up to fitness and stuff like that. I think next season, Mark, we could be frightening in the league. Really, really do. Looking at the squad now, Mark, and looking the condition of the players because of our sports science department. Like, not only has Ange changed the players, Mark, and the way we play, but he's brought the right people into the right areas that need to be brought in years ago. The likes of Anton in sports science and stuff like that. The data, Gavin Strachan, doing his proper job that he needs to be doing. It's really frightening.
The change in the club for a year ago, by the playing squad to behind the scenes, to even the way the club seems to be conducting itself, Paul, under Nicholson. I mean, people say, "Oh, you never hear this guy in the paper. You never hear him talk." That's the point of a good CEO. A CEO shouldn't be courting publicity. You shouldn't need to pick up the paper and read that the CEO's talking about stuff. The CEO's job's to run the club, to go on with it. It's up to the manager and stuff like that to deal with the press. And it really is the changing the full club, Paul. People were on the other day on the forum of going on when the board they don't put any money in. These guys are doing a job. It's their job to run Celtic. It's not their place to put money into a club. And for Peter Lowell left the building, they're changing the full club from top to bottom. The fans and everything are all backing side, backing the manager and backing the team. It's like night and day for this time a year ago. It really is. It's brilliant.
I just want to ask the live chat there, like Patrick there, McLaughlin's putting up, he said to my pal there last night, we'll score 120 goals next season. Who's your preferred striker next season? Is it Giamakis or is it Kyogo? And live chat there, lads, just put it up in the comments and we read them out. I think just because what he brings to the team is his movement and the way he moves off the ball, it has to be Kyogo. I'm with him yesterday, Mark, coming off the bench and doing assists. And so I think Kyogo, Haida, Hiase, Mark, and Dijon and then you have Yata, you have O'Reilly behind him, and maybe Callum Mack there as well, Mark. Like, it's frightening, Mark. You know what I mean? It really is frightening to be, or even you've Georgie Marcus in there, Mark. Like, the attacking options are just frightening. Who fills Rodgich's boots, Mark? Is it Turnbull or is it O'Reilly? Like, these are questions we need to ask ourselves here.
But like Paul said earlier, we play that many games that can be either or.
Because I thought Turnbull, Mark, yesterday, like his passing as well yesterday, Mark, was excellent. And Mark, I can criticise Turnbull.
There's some kind of rumours going about that Turnbull might be in his way out, but I'm not really paying much attention to him. Forest, West Ham have been scouting for a long time.
Yes,
Forest and Fulham were mentioned as well, but I don't know. Would Turnbull be that great a loss if he left?
No, that's just my opinion, Mark. No, not if it was under Neil Lennon, Mark. Yes, he'd be a big loss to the squad. But no, considering Mark, if Tom Rodgick left at the end of Neil Lennon's last season, when we
nobody would have bothered. Nobody would have batted an eyelid. A guy Rogic is due, man. He totally redeemed himself here in that last year for me.
Do you know what I mean? But no, Mark, that since we signed O'Reilly, I don't feel we're going to miss Rodgick, Mark, because I think O'Reilly will do Rodgick's job and more.
I like wee Matt O'Reilly, man. I've said that to you for the first time I seen him, Paul. Just I'm not going.
Like, to see his
I'm not
first goal
comparing. I'm not
yesterday,
comparing. I'm not comparing him to Paul McStay, but he's that tight. He's all over the place, and he's got a
to
good
see his
engine
goal
on
though
him.
yesterday, Mark,
I
the
know.
first
I
touch
know.
goal down the bottom corner. That's what I think. I think that's O'Reilly's going to bring goals next season, Mark. Definitely. Like, he's only been with us since January. Do you know what I
He
mean?
could be the kind of. What I complain about McGregor. See, McGregor was younger, Paul. He was that
Exactly.
type of player, arriving in the edge of the box and scoring goals. And see, playing him further back, that's been took away from him.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
for me, wee Matt Orley's a kind
And I
that
think,
type of
Mark,
player.
because McGregor was playing that role for so long, covering Scott Brown, that do you think maybe, Mark, he's forgot how to play that role that O'Reilly's playing now? Not forget
Well,
about, not used to it anymore, something, do you know what I mean?
uh,
That he's so used to
maybe
playing
be.
keeper back.
He's just maybe no. I don't know if it's natural to him to play up further. I mean, McGregor's certainly no scoring enough goals for me.
Definitely,
He
Mark.
definitely doesn't for what he was like when he was younger. Do you know what I mean? They took a lot out McGregor. I mean, I think McGregor's a great player. I just don't like him playing in that defensive midfield role. I don't think he's suited to it. And, well, maybe in Scotland against the lesser teams, but we've gone on about in the Derby games, Paul, how out-muscled we get in these games and that. And your defensive midfielder's meant to add that extra bit of muscle. McGregor doesn't do that.
No, he doesn't, Mark. No. I think, Mark, if McGregor did that, he'll end up getting sent off in games because he can't tackle.
No. And
know.
people used to go and see when Sorrow came on and was running about like a headless chicken and things like that. And then it always used to be the quote unquote walking the yellow kind of tightrope. But for me, look back, Paul, and see how many games McGregor's walking that same tightrope in Derby games and European games for putting in stupid tackles that he doesn't need to put in.
What happened to him, Mark? It's like this fella, we were screaming to play instead of Scott Brown. And to be fair, Mark, we had Barry Forbes here on the thing, and he even said it like that. He's been playing well in Scott, and then he gets dropped and Scott Brown comes in. But after that, Mark, he just seems to be a totally different player to what we were so used to seeing him. As you said, like a headless chicken. Did he forget how to play the game or something?
That is what it looked. That's what it kind of was like. It really was. It was just he ran about mental for 10 minutes, ended up booked, and then.
Because, Mark,
I mean, people were comparing him to Kanté and that. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And now,
like, Mark, he would be the ideal, like, of what we saw him filling in for Scott Brown. He would be the ideal defensive midfielder that we want because of his pace. He just, for some reason, he just can't be trusted. You know?
nah. But
Yeah.
fair do. I mean, he's away as well, so fair dues. You know what I mean? Just
An
another
option
player
to
that
buy,
hasn't
Mark, as
worked
well
out.
is a good piece of business.
Aye.
For Celtic
I don't
as
know.
well.
Did they mention a fee, Paul?
No, I don't think that'll probably come up, Mark, till the end of the season. I say when it's done, like, you know what I mean. I don't think they'll give out that information now that he's only on there.
Even if it was a free transfer, let's be careful. Who cares, really, isn't it? I mean, if we can free Beaton and we can free Rogic, we can free Sorrow next summer.
Exactly. Is Barkas' deal a loan or is that a buy?
Well, it's a loan. A loan. There's an option to buy, but it's just a loan, Paul.
Like, did you
Sure
see
there's-
him playing against the Queen's Park they were playing, Mark? Is it the other day?
No.
I think when they playing for Queen's Park, Euris and Barkas.
Oh, I
was
don't
like,
know.
"Oh."
I don't know. They might have been. I don't know.
And it was typical. It was his first game in goal for him, and his typical Barkas comes out to get the ball, and the ball goes straight through his hands. And I just looked,
just-
going, your man still doesn't know how to use his hands.
He
Like.
just looked terrified, Paul. Didn't
Yeah,
he?
but Mark, he comes out there
for
and criticises Celtic, saying
Aye.
the fans never gave him the love and they never gave him a chance. Like, he's got plenty of chances, Mark, with the Celtic fans.
Aye, Paul, for the very first minute I seen him in a Celtic jersey, he just looked as if he had the weight of the world on his shoulder. And I know, let's put it in perspective as well, Paul, all that stuff, it was at the time with COVID and all that. So you can see why maybe it didn't work out. You can maybe understand why maybe that stuff was just getting into his head, that things weren't the same. He wasn't getting to know his teammates and stuff like that. But he still looked as if he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. He'd never looked comfortable in the Celtic jersey.
No,
It just never looked.
Out for him, Mark, didn't it?
It just, even his facial expression, I don't know, maybe just that's his expression, but he just always looked terrified to me, as if what's going on here.
What's Reggie saying there on the live chat? Don't go after the watershed because Paul has some moments. What's that?
On the Discord, I've just put the Discord link in the live chat for Bobby.
Right.
Anybody else, if you want to come on, join the Discord way. But I'd be warned, some of them are some of the guys are a bit no right in the head, to be honest.
You might learn how to play Soggy Biscuit.
Don't take any invites off of Paul to play Soggy Biscuit. That's how he's not going to the Blackburn game.
They tried to do private messages in Discord, but they put out public, so I saw them now. They're freaked.
Look,
you know, I can just see.
Look at that comment.
What's that? What comment?
On the screen there for William Smith. Welshie, I did try to join me, called me a hun because of my name.
Was that Bobby, is this?
No, William Smith.
Oh, right. Jesus. Right. I think Reggie excuses everyone being until he saw some You know, Jesus Christ, poor Jabba got it.
Poor Jabber, man. That was about 3 folk messaged me. It's actually a hun.
You know, but Mark, everything, like, last season, pre-season was just atrocious. We had the qualifiers in, they were atrocious against Midtjylland. It's just a different turnaround now. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're going into games, we're competitive in these pre-seasons. Everyone seems faster. They seem to be playing. I really do, Mark. I think next season will be frightening, considering the lack of movement. I know they brought in a few players, but who are they? You know, Tom Lawrence. I wouldn't give him my boots to fucking play football. He's that bad.
No.
You know, I think next season will be
even
frightening.
Buzz put up the stats of that striker I've seen, that Kolak he's called, and he's not exactly. I mean, we all know Angie self said the first season's can be a bit iffy. I think that was him covering his own backside, Paul, in case he didn't win the league last year.
But
if that's what I'm going to say.
Season, get me? If this is Angie's first season, have we only got a glimpse of the way Ange ball can actually be?
Aye, that's as you say, Paul. If this season, if his first season was always going to be hit and miss for him, and that's him kind of hit and missing. Just as you say, what are we going to be like next season? All these players, hey, the rest of it, Paul. We've not got these qualifiers.
Exactly.
Do you get what I'm expecting Celtic to come out the top
flying
next season,
they
flying.
would have been happening next week, Mark. These qualifiers.
But the bit as quick as that, aye.
Yeah, it'll be next week. Yeah. So the first qualifiers are over already. So it's the second one be next week, and then they'll have that. So like we maybe the middle around the 18th, 20th of July, Mark, we'll be going into the third qualifying rounds. You know, it's that quick, like.
I mean, we're not kicking a ball in anger in Europe, Paul, to September.
Yeah.
And it's the beginning of September the Champions League group stages start. I mean, we could be miles in front of the league by then.
I still think, Mark, that for him to really get the full effect of where he wants to play is just what we talked about, Mark. That missing piece where McGregor is currently playing. That seems to me is the only link that I think Ange needs. And is that player Gucci? I don't know. Does Ange want Gucci there? We don't know, but hopefully it is. But it's that one position, Mark, I think Ange wants filled.
And I think that will see the team kick on as well, Paul, to see but actual Ange balls like in full flow. That's been what you're saying. That's the position we've
because
been missing.
That guy said it to you that when he was with Yokohama, his first season, and at the end of that season, he said it that he wanted. What did he call it? What did he call it? The pivot. He wanted the pivot.
Aye.
That keeps everything tracking. That takes the tackles and moves the ball. And he said that after his first season. So he came to Celtic, Mark. He's played different types of players there. He's played Cal McGregor in there. He's played Beeson in there. He's played, I don't know, McCarthy in there. I think, Mark, that's the one player Ange feels that he's missing at Celtic at the moment.
Aye, I definitely
You
agree with that. And
know,
I think that's going to see. But
and he,
that'll be the total kind of vision of what
and
Ange
he's
Ball's meant to be if he gets
do you remember
that right player in there.
remember that young lad I told you he signed Denmark, Mida, for Yokohama. He signed him, and then after that, Ange Ball came full effect into Yokohama. You know, that's what it did. So I think that if we're going to bring in someone, it'll be that position. And if we don't do that, if we don't bring in someone in that position, I would really think it'd be Gucci that we playing there. You know,
It's let's face it, Paul. She's coaches in that go. Is there a better coach in Scotland than Ange?
no,
For what we know that he's trying to do, for the way, what we see on the park, the way they're playing. I mean, see even let's look at Ibrox and that. I mean, they just play the same. See, no matter who the manager is, they just seem to fill. Aye, they just fill the team with these certain kind of big physical players that will fight and bully and let's put it straight, cheat to win games.
mm-hmm.
Whereas we can see what Ange is trying to do different. He's by far the best coach in Scotland, and no matter for me, no matter what any other coach or manager comes up with next year, Ange is going to see them
got
off.
you to the playoffs. About Clark, got you. Imagine he was linked
What
with
do you mean?
Celtic,
What do you mean he get used into the playoffs?
Scotland.
Ugh. Paul, half the time I don't. Do you know? Half the
I
time
know that,
I don't
yeah.
even know Scotland's playing. I had to say to you, I didn't
Imagine
know
Max,
Scotland
some
playing.
Celtic fans wanted him as manager. Do you imagine that?
See,
Jesus.
I think, right, my kind of opinion, see if you're a manager at like a smaller club, Paul, you've got to kind of develop your game to keep your job, basically, isn't it, really, to keep your job.
Yeah.
But see if you get the chance to become a manager at a bigger club with more money, if you get the chance, if you come from a weird team background, blah, 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 then you get the chance to manage at Celtic, that's when you should be able to kind of stamp your own style of football onto a game. Because you know that you can afford the better players, you know you can play a more expansive version of the game, you can attack teams, you spend a lot of the more time with the ball, you spend more time in the attacking third
What
of
is
the
it
pitch.
that
Clark
the
wouldn't
idea
have
what Ange-
Clark,
yeah.
but Clark wouldn't have done that. Do you get what I mean? Clark would have still, if Clark had come into Celtic, he'd have still played the exact same way you had Kilmarnock playing.
Definitely.
That's the thing about
Definitely.
it.
Definitely.
I mean, I've
And
said
then-
to you, Paul, I don't know if this might be bull, but I've said to you, I think I've said to Mikey as well, chatting to him, you can get good coaches and you can get good managers. For me, guys like Steve Clark is a good coach, but he needs somebody above him to be telling him what to do on the training field.
I think, yeah. If you like,
There's a lot of these guys are good at coaching. They take a step up to managing, and it
it
just
was like Mike Phelan, Mark, there from
Aye,
Manchester
Mike
United,
Phelan.
and then he went to Huddersfield, remember? when they
even
got relegated?
go back to that. Who was him that left Man U for Blackburn years ago?
Brian
That
Kidd.
Brian Kidd.
Yeah.
Guys like that, all these coaches that try and make a step up. See, maybe you're just better off. Maybe I've said to you before, maybe that's what
Mark,
John
is that-
Kennedy. Is that what John Kennedy's
Yeah,
like?
The same about maybe like we're always saying that maybe Kennedy now should take his chance with the Hibs job. Maybe Kennedy knows, Mark, he doesn't want that job. Maybe he wants to be the
Aye.
second man.
Maybe he's
and
happy
do this
enough
for
doing
Real.
that. But Paul, it goes from manager to manager, but the majority of times the manager isn't out in the training field constantly. It's the coaches that deal with the players, and the manager will be there for maybe an hour or that stuff. So maybe John Kennedy doesn't want to be that guy. Maybe he prefers being on the training pitch constantly and working with wee different groups doing this and this wee group to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what impressed me so far, Mark, with the pre-seasons, like, with the cameras off, Mark, and his goal, you can hear the sidelines. Harry Kewell is vocal of
Fuck
what
him.
he wants players to do.
Fuck
Very
him.
vocal, man, and I think it's only... No, but what he's doing, Mark, is...
You're trying to
like,
wind me up. You're trying to
No.
wind me up now.
No, but what he's doing, Mark, is he's telling the players their movement, and he's pointing to them where they need to go. Do you get me? He's showing them, like, proper way to do, Mark, in pre-season is where they can learn. And he was constantly telling players, move here, move left, watch behind you, move there. Do you get me? he was telling players how to do, which I thought was because Kennedy's quiet, Mark. Let's be honest, he's a quiet lad. I don't think Kennedy would be the type of player that manager that would do something like that. But Harvey Kuehl was vocal, and I think that's only a benefit to Ange in having someone vocal on his backroom staff.
Well, excuse me. Well, I said that to you last season, Paul, at times when Celtic were struggling. Ange was just standing there doing nothing. And I said at the time, see if that was Neil Lennon standing there when Celtic were struggling, like in derby games and that, he'd have been getting slaughtered. So I just said, maybe he's needing... I mean, Damien Duff was more that kind of...
Yeah, he was vocal,
that wee shouty guy and that. And John Kennedy doesn't seem that type either, but John Kennedy's meant to be a kind of tough guy behind the scenes, but he doesn't back down. Do you know what I mean? He'll say his say behind the scenes, and if anybody's getting to say, he'll back his... Do you know what I mean? John Kennedy is very opinionated.
But too quiet then to tell Ange he needs to make a sub or something like that. You guys, there was some matches there, Mark, when it was clear we need to make subs and Ange didn't make them, but I think Harry Kuehl could actually point something out and we need to change something here. To get me? Maybe bring on this player there. Do you know what I mean? Maybe Ange actually needed someone like that in his back. Something different to what Kennedy actually is. To get me? And I'm not trying to criticise Kennedy.
I know what you mean. Just that message there. Thanks very much, Margaret. Glad you enjoyed it. We usually have other guys come on in that, but this was our first time trying StreamYard, so we didn't really want to push our luck. But thanks very much for that, Margaret. I appreciate it. Come in any time. We're here every Sunday night.
Well, that's just before we finish. Like we're going to be on this setting from now on, and throughout the podcast, if you want to come on, put it on the live chat. Mark will get you a link to the live chat, and you can come on. You don't have to come on for the whole podcast. Instead of what it is what we're trying to get done is, instead of you guys putting your post up on the live chat and trying to explain what your post is, come on to us for 10-15 minutes and talk to us about your post, and we'll have a proper discussion about it. Instead of just having myself and Mark discuss it, come on with us and discuss your topic with us. You know?
I mean, there I've put the link there in the live chat, but I mean, you saw how easy it was for you to go in here earlier, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like OG Glaswegian and other guys that are used to YouTube stuff, they'll tell you how easy it is to just go on streams. You don't need to download anything, you don't need nothing. All you need is to click that link, and you can even use your phone just to do it. You don't need to put your camera on, your wee thing will come up here and that. It really is, it's really easy to do. It'll help the podcast and that grow as well, Paul, using this.
Not just that, Mark, like going into the season, look, myself and Mark are constantly planning different things, and we're looking at different things for next thing. So, like, for us here, like, this is the first step to hopefully bigger and better things, you know?
Taking over.
Yeah, definitely.
Once we get you on that bare knuckle boxing circuit and that, Paul, that'll be us. We'll be flying, man. No, the boys say, boss, the bare knuckle boxing. We're trying to get you a wee spar with a couple of Traveller boys for doing in Manchester.
I'd have to inject myself a freaking heroin if I come onto that. I say to fit in the club. I don't know if any of you ever watched.
Don't even joke about
that. And I thought onto it. I was better off going out to Partick Street here in Cork, and I would have saw a better fight between two junkies than watching that crap you told me to watch that night. They couldn't even talk to each other. They looked like Mark that they were after. Do you remember that drink years ago? I don't know, do you have it over in Scotland? Devil's Bit cider.
No,
it's like Linden Village for fucking shit. It's shit. Like it's the cheapest of the cheapest. Like, do you know what I mean? You know, and it was like they were after drinking a 2-litre bottle of that before they got in the ring.
I don't know what they're all about, Paul.
Yeah, but look at the crowds they get, I know. Look at the crowds they get. Like, they go into the live chat, man. The live chat's full. Do you know what I mean? It's full. Do you know what I mean? You know, that's it for tonight, lads. Thanks very much for all the new guys joining us tonight. So hope you join us again. Thanks very much, and Mark will cover the show.
Just as you said there, Paul, thanks to you, Paul, everybody that joined us, all the new folk. We hope you enjoyed it. Hope you come back whenever we're doing a live, and you're all more than welcome to call in just to voice your opinions. Remember and hit the like button. If you've not subscribed, please do it. Share it, help us grow on the YouTube and that. Good night, God bless, and hail, hail.